What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. Hope you're happy, hope you're safe, hope you're healthy, hope you're practicing social distancing, washing your hands, taking care of yourself. These are obviously troubling times that we are in the middle and across our world. And while there are far more important things than the world of sports going on across our world, the world of sports has been impacted by the coronavirus and the COVID-19 pandemic. There are no sports going on. People miss sports. People miss watching them. People miss talking about them. And so in an effort to combat this, a lot of television networks, a lot of professional sports leagues have done something really cool. They have offered up abilities to watch old games and sort of relive those different memories. And the NFL, they made Game Pass free. In fact, if you don't know what Game Pass is, it's a way you pay for this. It's normally a subscription service. You get to rewatch any game you want over the last 10 years. There's coaches film, there's all 22 angles and whatnot, but this is free for you for the time being. So you can go check it out. You can watch whatever game you want. And to help you, we have put together a list of the top 10 games of the last decade for the Dallas Cowboys. Now, obviously the past decade for the Cowboys was not successful in that they did not win a Super Bowl. This decade was defined mostly by Jason Garrett being the head coach, but there were a lot of great things that happened. There was a huge transition that happened throughout the last decade. And I think the first thing, our number one game, and we're going chronologically here, was a barn burner, man. In 2013, Peyton Manning's Denver Broncos, who would go on to put together a season that is literally the greatest offense in NFL history, they stormed into AT&T Stadium, and they brought those all blue Navy uniforms with them, and the Cowboys were kind of counted out going into this game, built up a 14-0 lead, and this was just a shootout. It was Romo at his finest, Peyton at his finest. I mean, this was peak Peyton Manning, and Tony Romo went shot for shot with him. Terrence Williams caught his first touchdown as a Cowboy. Des Bryant had a huge game. Tony Romo was magnificent. Unfortunately, this game ultimately ended after a billion points were scored because Tony Romo got stepped on and threw an interception. And many people believe that this game kind of serves as a microcosm for Tony Romo's career, and that it was sort of this heroic Herculean performance that is ultimately defined and remembered by a mistake that wasn't entirely his fault. That's kind of who Tony Romo was as the Cowboys quarterback in a larger sense. But this game, even though the Cowboys lost, was incredible and was Tony Romo operating at the peak of his powers, finally sort of realizing his true potential as the Cowboys quarterback. Now, moving on to 2014, one of the more special seasons in Dallas Cowboys memory. The first game we're going to get into here involves the in-state rival Houston Texans. That's right, the Cowboys and Texans only meet every 4 years, and Houston traveled to AT&T Stadium on this particular day. And it was a pretty intense game. But this game is really remembered kind of for one play. J.J. Watt, one of the greatest defenders in NFL history, had a clear shot at Tony Romo, and Romo hit him with that Romo spin, got out of his way, threw a big-time touchdown, and the Cowboys, thanks to Des Bryant and Dan Bailey late in the game, managed to pull it off. And this is a game that a lot of people hold fondly. Again, every Cowboys fan knows a Texans fan, and it was a great way of trash talking, especially with the Romo spin and whatnot. But the amazing thing was that this Romo spin wasn't even the last one he would do right then, because the biggest game perhaps of Jason Garrett's career, at least in the Tony Romo era, was unquestionably when his Cowboys went to Seattle in 2014. This was a Seahawks team that was the reigning Super Bowl champions. They, at the time, were very, very difficult to beat at CenturyLink Field. They had beaten those Denver Broncos that we talked about in that season Super Bowl in 2013. And to be blunt, they were just the best team in the world. And the Cowboys went into Seattle. They brought DeMarco Murray in that ground game that was really sort of materializing to a full degree with Zach Martin in his rookie year. And they just took it to the Seahawks, and it was dramatic, and there was a lot of back and forth. There was some early on scoring. Gavin Escobar even got involved in the action, but the play that everybody remembers from this game was Tony Romo finding Terrence Williams on 3rd and 20. Another Romo spin, the toe-tapping, just incredible antics of Terrence Williams, and it was a beautiful day. It was a beautiful time to be a Cowboys fan, and one of those wins that you remember for the rest of your life, to be quite honest with you. And ultimately, I think this is kind of the win that propelled the 2014 Cowboys, but, in a lot of ways, a win that defined them was a win that was also on the road against a green team that has a bird mascot, and it was against the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the Cowboys got destroyed by Philly on Thanksgiving, but shortly after went to Philadelphia for a game on Sunday Night Football, and Tony Romo and Des Bryant had a pretty good night, to say the least. Tony Romo found Des Bryant a hat trick's worth of times. Shout out to Nolan Carroll. And one of them, Tony Romo even flashed a thumbs up to Des Bryant before he threw this incredible touchdown. It was a win. They really kind of gave the Cowboys control in the NFC East, and a week later they would go on to beat the Indianapolis Colts with authority and win the NFC East for the first time in Jason Garrett's tenure as the team's head coach. Again, it was a magical time, and as NFC East winners, the Cowboys obviously got to host a playoff game, and they hosted the Detroit Lions in what was Ndamukong Suh's final game as a member of the Lions. And this was a back and forth. I mean, this was a stressful game. You'll remember quite well. Kind of just living on the edge of your seat the entire time. There was a lot of clutch moments down near the stretch. There was the pass interference call on now Super Bowl champion Anthony Hitchens that got picked up. There was the incredible 4th and 6 wide option that Jason Garrett teared up about when talking about Jason Witten when Jason Witten first retired. There was the incredible Romo to Terrence Williams touchdown that was kind of effectively the game winner. And then there was the blunder by DeMarcus Lawrence trying to return the fumble, fumbling it himself, and then ultimately getting the exclamation point himself, sacking Matthew Stafford for a playoff win in his rookie season. Time does certainly fly. But those are kind of the last great moments of the Cowboys with Tony Romo and DeMarco Murray, because we don't have any games in 2015 because it was such a horrible year. But in 2016, the Cowboys were under new leadership from an on-field perspective. Dak Prescott and Zeke Elliott in their rookie seasons were fantastic. And, you know, it's not a coincidence that there are so many Eagles games on here, because the Cowboys and the Eagles are bitter rivals. And anytime the Cowboys get a win over Philadelphia, it's a big deal. And the Cowboys and the Eagles met in late October for the first time in the Dak and Carson Wentz era. And this was sort of the setting of the table. What was it going to be like? Dak Prescott, Carson Wentz. And this game on Sunday Night Football was unbelievable. Chris Jones had an incredible fake punt. This game had really kind of just this back and forth. It felt like two heavyweights. It went to overtime, and Dak Prescott found Jason Witten for the game-winning touchdown to give him the first win in the Dak Wentz battle. And every Cowboys fan was so happy to have their new quarterback, their new running back. And I think the peak of that, at least that season, was certainly a few weeks later, also against a team from Pennsylvania, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, the Cowboys don't travel to Pittsburgh all too often. In fact, only once every 8 years. And so the Cowboys were in Pittsburgh in 2016 to take on the Steelers. And obviously the Cowboys and Steelers go way back. Their rivalry, Super Bowls, and all sorts of stuff. Tom Landry, Chuck Noll. This was a new age battle. Dak and Big Ben and Antonio Brown and Des Bryant and Le'Veon Bell and Zeke Elliott. There was a lot going on. There was a big, huge screen pass touchdown that Dak had to Zeke Elliott that a lot of people remember really kind of defined this game in a lot of ways. But the actual defining play was a huge Zeke touchdown late in the game that gave the Cowboys the win right up the middle. Shout out to Gavin Escobar again, who had the ceiling block to break Zeke free. This was the Cowboys, kind of like that win in Seattle 2 years before, announcing to the world that they were for real. It is perhaps the best game of the Cowboys last decade. It's my personal favorite. I was at this game with my dad. We actually incidentally sat next to Franco Harris. So after the game, didn't rub it in too much, but definitely let him know that the Cowboys got the win and the Steelers did not. Speaking of intense games, our next game on our list is a year later. Also on the road and also against a classic rival. The Dallas Cowboys traveled for the last time, at least assuming nothing big changes over the course of the next who knows how long, to take on the Oakland Raiders. That's right, Dak Prescott and co were fighting for a playoff spot in their last game without Ezekiel Elliott, who was suspended at the time. The Raiders were still coached by Jack Del Rio, former Cowboy, and this game was kind of ugly, if we're being honest. It was kind of ugly for a long time. Dak Prescott had a nice rushing touchdown. The black hole went crazy, threw some beers and whatnot. But this game got dramatic near the end. The Cowboys, on a critical 4th and short, snuck it with Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott ran the sneak and looked like he got it, and there was a lot of measurement going on. There was a lot of things up in the air, and Gene Steratore, the man, the myth, the legend, pulled out the old index card to give the Cowboys the much-needed first down. And then, of course, this game would be defined by Derek Carr and the Raiders offense driving late, got a big pass interference call on Jordan Lewis, then a rookie for the Cowboys, and then Derek Carr trying to play hero, tried to run to the sideline, tried to stretch the ball out, and Jeff the GOAT Jeff Heath caused that fumble, went out the back of the end zone. It was a touchback, and the Cowboys stayed alive at least for another week. Now, there are 2 more games left on our list, and they both come from the 2018 season, the last year that the Dallas Cowboys won the NFC East and won a playoff game. And perhaps the most signature win of the 2018 Cowboys season was when they played the New Orleans Saints at home. This was a Thursday night football game. At the time, the Cowboys were really kind of coming alive after they had traded for Amari Cooper, and a lot of people are starting to believe in them. A lot of people are really starting to buy into their big-time defense. The Saints offense was flying high. This was a match that a lot of people were really looking forward to, and the Cowboys defense hung on, wearing their color rush uniforms. The whole world saw Leighton Vander Esch, the Wolf Hunter, Jalen Smith, DeMarcus Lawrence, the Hot Boys. Everybody was a big part of this game on defense. Jordan Lewis, we already talked about a minute ago, had the game effectively sealing interception, and the Cowboys marched forward. And, it's pretty awesome beating the Saints. The Cowboys have done that a couple of times. Did so the decade before in 2009 when they beat the Saints on a Saturday night. Those types of wins certainly are rare. But the last game in our 10 games that you should go rewatch on Game Pass was a few weeks after the Saints win for the Cowboys in 2018, and it involves the Seattle Seahawks once again. The Cowboys, as a division winner, drew the Seahawks in the NFL's Wildcard round. And this was a measuring stick game for the Cowboys. They really had to understand who they were with Amari Cooper and Dak Prescott and Zeke Elliott and all the rest, because a year before, on Christmas Eve in 2017, the Cowboys lost what was effectively a playoff game to the Seahawks, but not in 2018. No. Dak Prescott put the Cowboys on his back late in the game, ran in for the touchdown, gave the Cowboys the win, and they moved on, ultimately losing to the Los Angeles Rams that would make it to the Super Bowl. But it was a big win, and it was a win that sort of defined the Cowboys, and it was a win that saved a lot of jobs as Jason Garrett and everybody came back for 2019 before ultimately, going their separate ways from the Cowboys after the 2019 season. But Game Pass, once again, available for free. There are a lot of great Cowboys games to watch. These are certainly 10 of the best ones. We hope you enjoy. Want to know what you think? You can hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. I'm at RJ Ochoa. You can always hit us up, Blogging the Boys on Twitter, at Blogging the Boys. We're on Instagram, blogging.the.boys. You can shoot me an email, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. Make sure to subscribe right here, the official Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Make sure to check out bloggingtheboys.com. Oh, and also, make sure to have yourself a fantastic day. We'll see you next time.